Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Before we begin, we have a few housekeeping items. Jacqueline, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. In effort to cut down on some of the background noise for this meeting, we're going to ask if you are able to raise your hand virtually. If you are logged into this meeting on a computer, you should see a raise hand option, and then we can call on you. Same thing if you are logged in on the computer, or I'm sorry, if you are dialed in on the phone, excuse me, you can dial *9 and that will virtually raise your hand, and from there we can individually call on you as well. This should hopefully eliminate some of the background noise that we had from the last meeting.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
You're welcome.
Now, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, I will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Please follow along silently. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Posey, would you call the roll?
Yes, Madam Supervisor. Trustee Bussino?
Here.
Trustee Nevers?
Present.
Trustee Oliver?
Here.
Trustee Smith?
Here.
Treasurer Goodhue?
Here.
Clerk Posey here. Supervisor Dunn?
Here.
All board members are present.
Thank you. Now we have the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections?
Madam Chair, this is Karen Goodhue. I'm noticing that the meeting minutes from the previous meeting are not on the agenda.
Yes.
They should be at the next meeting for approval. They are they're not in record unless they are approved, and they should be on this agenda.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes.
Mr. Meehan, at the last meeting, I thought we touched on things that weren't essential in the meeting minutes. Were one of them. I mean, I don't have an issue with adding those on, but that's why we didn't add them on.
Well,
No,
in all my
This
in
is
all
Greg.
my training, go
The
ahead.
minutes need to be
Greg.
the minutes need to be done.
Okay, just add them on then. So Karen,
can
are
we
you
expect it
requesting to
at
add
the
that on?
next meeting? Yeah, at the next meeting, are we going to have this tonight's and the last meeting minutes available at the next meeting then?
No, we can
Is it
add
Anna?
on right now approval of the meeting minutes from March 25th.
Well, we didn't have anything to read.
Oh, I
I like
apologize.
to read them before
Okay, yeah, we can add them on.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda item as presented then.
Motion by Ms. Goodhue.
Support.
Nancy. Supported by Ms. Nevers to approve the agenda as presented. Ms. Posey, would you call the roll?
Yes, Madam Supervisor. Treasurer Goodhue?
Yes.
Trustee Nevers?
Yes.
Trustee Bussino?
Yes.
Trustee Oliver?
Yes.
Trustee Smith?
Yeah.
Clerk Posey, yes, and Supervisor Dunn.
Yes. Thank you. Now we have the approval of the bills. As usual, there are two bill runs. If anyone wishes an item removed, please indicate so at this time.
Okay, Madam Chair, if there are no issues with either bill run, I move that we approve both at this time.
Who is speaking, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, Nancy. Pardon me.
Nancy. Motion by
Sorry,
Ms.
Oliver.
Nevers, seconded by Mr. Oliver to authorize payment of both bill runs. Ms. Posey, would you call the roll?
Yes. Trustee Nevers?
Yes.
Trustee Oliver,
Yes.
Trustee Bussino,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Treasurer Goodhue,
Yes.
Clerk Posey, yes, and Supervisor Dunn.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to public comments. There is a 3-minute time limit. Please remember to state your name at the beginning. Is there anyone that wishes to address the board?
I'm going to unmute everybody. If you have a question, please raise your hand virtually. It'll be easier for us to call on you. And we will do that now. It'll just take me a minute.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You are unmuted.
Oh.
Oh, whoa. That's somebody's phone. I had to mute that person. Sorry.
Oh, boy. That's not good.
I also would like to remind the residents to please put your phone on mute if you can until you're ready to speak. Okay, Supervisor, we have, everybody's unmuted, and we have 2 people so far, or one person raising their hand, Mr. Frank Cusimano. You're free to speak.
Good evening, everyone. Frank Cusimano, 16188 Jenny Drive. My public comment is regarding the waste removal contract. There was a committee that was appointed by the board. That's not me. I'm wearing a headset, by the way. And then I know that Mr. Krasinski passed away, and I'm curious what the status is of that contract. I would make the recommendation and the suggestion that General Counsel for the Township be authorized to conduct a survey of surrounding communities and summarize their terms and conditions. Is everyone able to hear me clearly? Because I'm getting feedback and echo.
I can hear you.
Yes.
I can hear you.
Okay.
I can hear you.
There was a recent issue that I think it was over the summer regarding the combination of compost and solid waste in a truck. And I wanted to know if it's a term that has to be separated, whether or not there's any mechanism by which the current vendor is being checked to make sure they're complying with that. If it's not important, we shouldn't do it. We shouldn't make it part of the spec. And maybe we can get a cheaper rate. Also, it was reported in the Detroit Free Press that paper is now being landfilled because the price of paper pulp is so low that it's not cost effective. And I wanted to know, well, as part of this whole process of preparing for the contract negotiations, whether or not that can be accomplished by determining through the survey I mentioned. And again, there's the water issue, which is going to be coming up at some point in time. And a similar survey should be conducted by General Counsel to do comparables, because we do comparables for purposes of determining whether or not compensation of elected officials is sufficient. But we should also be doing it for these other real core local issues, water and garbage hauling. I also want to report that Hayes and Hall Road Costco gas is at 95 cents a gallon, and that you have to wait to get inside. They're letting 25 people in at a time and keeping an equilibrium. I also want to make a public comment about what does exactly declaring a state of emergency do? And under the emergency operations plans, what are the benefits and what are the disadvantages? There was no discussion about that. I know that it gives extraordinary powers to the supervisor and an emergency manager. I can see the benefits for coordination, but that always exists. And an example is the Macomb County Sheriff's Department contract and the Command Center, Communication Technology Center, ComTech. But those advantages always exist for consolidation and synergies and economies of scale. So, you know, one of the things that I'm concerned about is whether or not it opens the spigots, as I've said, to binding the township to contracts and other financial obligations which aren't going through the normal process and procedure of board approval. That concludes my public comment. Thank you. And I will mute.
And the next,
Supervisor, we don't have anybody else raising their hand. If anybody else would wish to speak, you can raise your hand virtually or using your phone. You can press *9, and that will let us know that you want to speak. Mr. Tom Sokol, go ahead.
Excuse me, this is Nancy Nevers speaking. I was just cut off, so I just dialed. I just redialed and I'm now part of the panel. Sorry.
Oh, you're in the panel?
I am, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Tom Sokol, you're free to speak.
Thank you very much. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is Resident Tom Sokol, and my address is on file with the clerk's office. Thank you for your time this evening. I wanted to speak about the Faisal Khan documentation from his case that was made public earlier this year about the $10,000 cash that Dino Bucci received. There's concern out there in our community of exactly what Dino Bucci did with that $10,000. It's a concern to our community, and we're looking forward to moving forward and light being shed on exactly what happened when they have his upcoming sentencing and so on. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because there's also, as we spoke at previous meetings, and I wanted to talk about Janet Dunn and what she had to report to the U.S. Attorney. It's been made public that she needed to self-report something. It was very serious in nature because it needed to go to the U.S. Attorney. It's not a parking ticket, it's not jaywalking, it's not littering. Things that are reported to the U.S. Attorney are very serious in nature. And I think the residents deserve transparency around this transgression that was reported. So I'm hoping that our elected and appointed officials on this board will demand transparency, and we have a right to know as residents, since Janet Dunn, our supervisor, is voting on important issues in our township, what exactly Supervisor Dunn did. The residents deserve truth and transparency. Thank you very much.
is there anyone else out there, Mr. Mann?
I don't see anybody else raising their hand. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand virtually. You can use *9 on your phone.
All right, let's move to the next issue, Janet, if you can, please.
If there are no other comments, we will move on to board action regarding House Bill 6201. You were sent the information in your packet. If you have specific questions, Mr. Meehan is here to assist. Any board members wish to ask Mr. Meehan any questions?
Yes, Madam Chair. This is Tim Bussino talking. I just got a quick comment or question. This seems to be a HR issue, correct? That has already been determined by federal legislation. It's more that you were just reporting to us how this was going to be carried out for our employees. Am I saying that correct?
Yeah, Tim, this is Attorney Greg Meehan, and for the public that's listening, you're exactly right. 6201 is essentially, and then followed by the bill, the CARS bill, is basically an incentive for businesses and the employees of businesses and municipalities to maintain the employment levels and to allow employees to have an opportunity to continue the economics of their life, but at the same time care for someone who may have or is suffering from COVID-19 or have children whose child care facilities and schools have been closed. Briefly, there are two acts. One is to expand the FMLA to provide for 12 weeks, up to 12 weeks of leave with 2/3 pay, 10 weeks of 2/3 pay. The first 2 weeks are unpaid for families that have to not work but be home because their child is out of school or that their child's daycare has been closed. And then the paid sick leave act provides up to 80 hours for individuals who meet one of the 6 requirements. And that usually deals with whether or not they are been designated to self-isolate or are assisting someone else self-isolate. So it's essentially an employee HR issue, and I just wanted you to know that your HR department and I have worked through this, and they are on top of it, and everything's working fine.
Thanks, Greg.
No problem, Tim. Thank you, sir.
Anyone else with questions?
So what is the action that you are asking us to do this evening?
What was that, Ms. Goodhue?
I'm wondering, it says board action regarding the House bill. What is the action that is being asked of us?
It was the action just to give you an opportunity if you had any questions of what's going on. I know that's kind of confusing, but that's what all we are supposed to do. There's nothing for you to pass. There's no motion to be made. It's imposed on us by the federal government.
Okay.
Good
you.
question, Ms. Goodhue. No, I mean, good question, though. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to follow that up. Karen, that's why I asked that question of Greg, because it seemed like since this is already federal legislation, that it was just kind of like informational purposely. So I kind of shared your thought there on when I read board action too.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, this is Janet. The correspondence that I got from the HR department indicated that the Township Board needs to have a motion to include the Macomb Township first responders in that bill as it is written.
Well, that was the second part of it that I thought we were going to do. First was 6201. And I'm in agreement with you. Now that with the first responders, they are included in the bill, but you can make a motion to have them included as part of your action. So that's part,
okay.
As far as I understood, that's part B. So let's do part B now, if you don't mind.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? Are there any motions?
Madam Chair? Charlie
Yes.
Oliver?
Yes.
Trustee Oliver? I move we include the first responders into HB 6201.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Oliver,
Support by Trustee Smith.
seconded by Ms. Smith to exclude the Macomb Township first responders in House Bill 6201. Ms. Posey, would you call the roll?
Yes, Madam Supervisor. Trustee Oliver,
Yes.
Trustee Smith,
Yes.
Trustee Bussino,
Yes.
Trustee Nevers,
Yes.
Treasurer Goodhue,
Yes.
Clerk Posey, yes, and Supervisor Dunn.
Yes. This motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have an update on the current state of emergency. Chief Phillips, are you with us?
Yes, good evening. Just a quick update. We are currently operating under the state of emergency that the board approved at their meeting 2 weeks ago. That is set to expire April 27th. It'll be monitored, and depending on conditions, a request to extend it may be made at the next meeting. Depends on what happens over the next 2 weeks. Before the state of emergency is stated before is to make sure that we have access to the personal protective equipment that the firefighters need on the calls that we're responding to, and to make sure that the township is eligible for federal reimbursement for the expenses that are incurred as a direct result of the pandemic. Today, paperwork was received from the federal government regarding what is eligible for reimbursement. Forwarded it on to the finance director, and we'll be working through that process over the next few weeks as we submit for the overtime costs that have been incurred, and we expect to incur as we go. We have, over the last 2 weeks, we've had 2 firefighters take it off. One that did test positive for COVID-19. He is expected to return this coming Sunday, and 1 firefighter that was off awaiting test results, and those tests came back. He returned to work as of this past Monday. We've established a screening process where all on-duty personnel are screened before the start of their shift every morning, in 12 hours afterwards, and all paid on-call personnel are screened when they respond to their station for an alarm. All stations are sprayed daily and are continuously cleaned throughout the day and night by the on-duty personnel. All patient contact is now treated as if the patient is positive for COVID-19, so the personnel are taking all precautions, and if it's possible, the 911 dispatcher is asking the patients to meet us outside, that the firefighters don't have to go home. If that's not possible, then they will enter the truck, trying to do everything we can to limit exposure for both the patients and the person. Limited all medical calls to only 2 personnel, unless additional personnel are needed, then the officer in charge will request more. The personal protective equipment, our inventory is monitored daily. We are receiving supply national stockpile through the County Emergency Management Office and through County Medical Control, which is again provided under the state of emergency that we're operating under. We have been extremely fortunate that we've received donations from businesses of additional masks and other equipment that they have that they aren't using right now. They've been extremely generous in dropping that off at the fire station. We've had a lot of residents supplying us with whatever equipment they may have, and drinks and Gatorade and so on. And this morning I received a call from Romeo High School. The robotics team is currently making face shields. We'll be getting hold of me later in the week to make that delivery. So we are also overwhelmed by the generosity that we've had and experienced from the residents and the business community, especially the restaurants that are delivering food to the state residents that are dropping off food and supply to the fire station. So with that, I'll be happy to answer.
Does anyone have any questions for Chief Phillips?
I just want to raise one issue, Supervisor. Chief Phillips, because of the status of the emergency status that was announced last meeting, that allows you to apply for and receive the federal funds that you referenced earlier in your discussion, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The reason I wanted to drive that down is because one of the residents had asked the basis and reason for that status and emergency fund, and that was the primary reason for doing so. There's been no orders or decisions made by the supervisor that are outside the normal scope of business. It's been primarily because we wanted to qualify for those funds and to be able to allow the township to get all the money that it can. With that, I'm done with my statement, and thank you, Chief.
Anyone else?
Yes, yeah, Madam Chair, this is Trustee Bussino. Chief, first of all, thanks for looking out for our first responders, and I always appreciate when Romeo High School is name dropped. I do it myself, so thank you for that. But I do have a question, since the discussion is on that path tonight. The governor has declared the entire state a state of emergency, and then furthermore said the whole state is a disaster area, which the president then approved. Based on everything I read, because we're probably going to have to make decisions going forward on how long we want to extend our local state of emergency. Do you think we would not qualify for funds under the governor's emergency declaration, the governor's or state of emergency, the governor putting us a disaster area, and the president approving that the whole state's a disaster area? You don't think we would qualify for funds without taking that last step of going local?
Per the direction of Macomb County Emergency, every community was essentially strongly recommended to declare their own state of emergency at this point for the main purpose of obtaining the PPP, because we cannot go out and purchase it on our own. We have medical supplies that have been on order for 6 weeks or more that are back ordered. We cannot obtain masks. The only way we can get that is through the national stockpile at this time, which is the only way we can obtain it is by the township declaring their own state of emergency. Without that, we would not be able to obtain any of the equipment that's being provided. Once the president approved that national declaration, or I'm sorry, the state, the funds opened up, but it does not provide for the equipment or any of that.
Thank you both. Anyone else?
Madam Chair, Clerk Posey. I have a question for the chief. The local state of emergency, when is the expiration date on that? When would, if the governor should extend the stay home, stay safe, when is our local state of emergency expiring?
Our local expires is due to expire April 27th.
So if we had to extend it, we would have to extend it at our next meeting?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, Charlie Oliver, trustee. Chief Phillips, one just quick question. Is there much of a reduction in auto accidents due to the less traffic on the road?
Overall, our call volume is down slightly. However, the complexity of the calls that we're responding to have increased pretty drastically on the time it takes to respond to one of the calls, take to come back, decon the apparatus, the personnel, the equipment. So overall, our call volume is down slightly. However, the amount of time that each call is requiring is increased drastically.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Very well, then we will move on to General Counsel update. Mr. Mann.
Good afternoon, everybody and the public. I have a very few things. Just to let you know that pursuant to the last meeting, I had spent some time looking at the ethic ordinance, and I had provided the board some insight into a process by which I think the board should operate. Given the fact that we need to keep these meetings on essential purposes, my thoughts would be that in the May meeting, we can address one of the issues that I had with the ethics ordinance, and that is whether it's the board appoints 3 members of the board to be part of the ethics, or they appoint 3 members of the public to do so. And basically, that was the only issue or problem I had with it. But I think that the board could handle that in the May meeting and rule on what that interpretation is, and then begin its selection of applications and finally getting people to the board on the June meeting. So I think that by those 2 times, we should be out of this state of emergency and be in a proper position in May to clarify and accept that application, and in June to have those applicants appear before the board and actually approve, and finally have your ethic ordinance moving forward. The second thing is we are continuing to work the issues with regard to the prior HR and general counsel, and I have provided under the attorney-client privilege that updated information. And at the appropriate time, we can have a closed session meeting and then report to the public where we're at in that regard. Number 3, it worked well with Jim and making sure all of the necessary and essential projects have been reviewed and approved. Jim is a stickler. I love him dearly for that. I made a call to him to ask him where we're at and do a review, and we did that. And I just think him and his team and everybody else that you have in the township are superior and superb. And we're all up to date, and we're passing the things that need to be passed. Other than that, I have no further update other than to personally say to all of the people in the public, and specifically the first responders in the fire department, God bless you guys. You're on the front line, and be safe. That's all I have, Europe.
Thank you very much.
Madam Chair, this is Trustee Bassano. I would like to ask Greg a question based on his report. Greg, you still there?
Oh, absolutely.
Greg, today you sent us a plethora of information relating to one of the subjects that you just touched on. In that information, I'm going to try to, you cut me off at any point you think I'm saying too much, but there was, the way I interpret this information, there's been a request made for a decision of this board. And it seems almost like there is something out there that I'm not sure we've discussed enough to make that decision. And it seems what's being requested of us is a time-sensitive matter that we need to respond to this, or it could impact future legal decisions on it. Do you, based on some of those times, do you have a time frame or a date where we might have to have this closed session, just based on the dates that you sent us today?
Oh yeah, now we can talk about this part publicly. We have forced, with regard to the employee, there's 2 matters that need to be resolved. One is how this matter goes away, and second is whether or not they are going to take the right to complete the Laudermill hearing. And they indicate that they are, and they're going to provide us some dates so we can handle that. But in addition, they've made a demand. And that demand was conveyed to you today because I received it today. And that demand needs to be then forwarded off to your insurance carrier, MML, and that. I asked Miss Posey to do that today, and I'm sure she will have done it or may do it tomorrow. But it needs to get to MML immediately so that they can assign actual counsel for that. You do not want to engage in any discussions in any legal matter without first, once a demand is made, to give notice to the carrier. And so that's the only important thing that's there. And I would hope that the efforts that have been made today or tomorrow to MML will result in an immediate assignment. And then I would expect that we would, at the next meeting, be in a perfect position to move this thing forward with local counsel.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Tim?
Yeah, like I said, there were just dates that were involved with the communication that we have to meet, it seems like. So.
Yeah, no, that's the only date that was important, is that they finally made a demand after weeks of me asking and pushing them for completion of the Laudermill hearing. And, that's my job, is to move this along, not let it lag. And I got the demand, and again, it's to be forwarded off to the insurance carrier because it's not something that the township handles itself. And like I said, I expect MML to hire local panel counsel for that matter, and we'll see where it goes. As soon as that's done, then I have protected your rights and preserved the claim, and then we'll get local counsel, whether it would be someone that's on panel or I am not on MML's panel, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't assign that matter to me. But whomever that is, that person needs to have the authority of the insurance carrier, and then we will move quickly, Tim. And again, good question. Appreciate it. I'm sure that was clear as mud to everybody listening.
Thank you very much. We will now move on to board comments, and I will call your name.
Madam Supervisor, before you do that, can I leave the meeting? I've got to go pick up some medication for my medical issue, and I want to beat CVS before they close. So thank you, everybody. I'll let everybody go. And thank you to the public for joining the meeting. Bye-bye. Bye.
Very well. Mr. Bussino, do you have any comments this evening?
Yes, Madam Chair. I want to respond to the residents' comments. I just want to correct Frank that we do not have an emergency manager. We have an emergency liaison under the county emergency plan. To Mr. Sokol, both I and Ms. Nevers have asked for clarification of the transgression that was reported, clarification what that was. So there's been two board members that have asked that do not know to this date what was reported, and we have asked for that to be reported. But besides that, I had some in my comments about some things that me and Greg just went back and forth, and I appreciate that he answered those questions for us. And on that, I just want to wish everybody a happy Holy Week, spending it in different ways than we're all used to, but nobody can cancel Easter. So happy Easter to everybody.
Thank you. Ms. Nevers, do you have anything this evening?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd just like to say that it's very sad and unprecedented that we are not allowed to go to church, receive the sacraments, and spend Good Friday and, of course, Easter Sunday in our normal holy way. So everybody, in your own way, think of the Passion of the Christ and stay safe and enjoy family. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Oliver.
Yes. I just want to wish everyone a happy Easter, 1. 2, I want to thank Chief for all the work that you're doing with the firefighters and the police. And be safe, everyone. Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
Yes, Madam Chair and the Board, I'd like to thank all the first responders and especially our firefighters who are putting themselves out there every day. Our grocery workers, our nurses, our doctors. It's really getting close to home for me. I've lost a couple of people with this COVID. I want to wish all our residents to stay safe, spend some time with their family, and I want to wish everyone a very happy Easter.
Thank you. We will now move on to Treasurer's Comments. Ms. Goodhue?
Yes. Most of my phone calls and emails that I have been receiving are about our water bills. We had probably 100 to 150 water bills to still process when we closed down. Those were dated as to date received, and we will process those as soon as we get back to normal business in the township. There will be no penalties on those. And also April water bills are being held back and will be mailed out at a later date as well. So if you're not receiving that, that is the reason for that. Also, I would like to ask Ms. Posey if she could let us know how they're handling the election affidavits. I know that some of them, they require a notarized signature, which is a little hard to get right now because banks are closed and we're closed. So it's just, I've been asked, and I want to ask her to please explain how they're handling those as the deadline is coming up soon. Thank you, and have a good Easter.
Clerk's Comments. Ms. Posey?
Good evening, everybody. I'll start off by answering Ms. Goodhue's question. Our website has been updated since we closed the building. It included instructions on how to still file while the buildings are closed due to the coronavirus. The affidavit of identity is available on our website. It can be printed. It does require 2 copies to be submitted with obviously a filing fee of $100 and the check made out to Macomb Township Treasurer. It does require it to be notarized. I have indicated on our website that if they can't find someone to notarize their documents, I will make arrangements to meet with them. They just have to email me and I will notarize their documents, practicing the safe distancing. So I will be at Town Hall tomorrow in the afternoon, processing any candidate filings that came in this week. I'm also going to be finishing up FOIA requests that are outstanding while I'm in the office. So if anybody wishes to file tomorrow, I will be in the office and can notarize their documents. Otherwise, they can email me and I will make arrangements to assist them with the notarization. Also, I just want to say happy Easter to everybody and thank you to all our healthcare providers and first responders that are keeping us safe during this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Under Supervisor's Comments, according to the news reports, the Stay Home, Stay Healthy is actually working, and that's a blessing for us. Still, take care of yourselves and your families. That's the most important thing. Bless you all in this time of stay home and stay safe. Everyone, try and have a happy Easter. That concludes the business for this evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Yeah.
Motion Nancy Nevers, I'll second that motion.
Motion by Mr. Oliver, seconded by Ms. Nevers. Posey, would you call the roll?
Yes, Trustee Oliver?
Yes.
Trustee Nevers?
Yes.
Yes. Trustee Bassano?
Yes.
Trustee Smith? Trustee Smith?
Yes.
Treasurer Goodhue?
Yes.
That motion passes, Supervisor.
Yes. This meeting is adjourned.